Thank you, Jeremy Roenick, for just coming on and sharing some of your time. You are in the beautiful San Diego, like Ron Burgundy once said. So, how are you doing?
Doing great. Like you said, I am in San Diego. It's kind of hard not to be great when you're in weather like I'm in every day. So the weather's perfect, life is good, and nobody bothers me. So it's perfect.
Yeah, except like people like me that trying to interview you. That's on me. But wanted to ask you about
You're
the
easy. You're easy.
the NHL is back, and I wanted your opinion on some of like just the guys that could make it to the USA team. I mean, you have Frank Nazar, Spencer Knight playing their butts off right now. So can you tell me a little bit about just the NHL landscape right now?
Well, I think the game is great. The players they're fast, they're strong, they're talented. Um, all of them are in great shape. There's not a guy in the league that can't skate like the wind, can't shoot the puck, you know, 90 miles an hour. They're all super talented. Where the difference is their brains, right? Their toughness, how they play, how they decide to use that talent. So it's a fun game to watch. The game's in it's in great shape. Obviously, the revenue side of the game is great. We've always prided ourselves on having a squeaky clean image in that hockey league, and I think people appreciate that. And I think watching the games now, it's not your old school smash mouth, rock'em sock'em hockey. It's more built on agility, speed, coordination, and I think it's and to watch these guys play the game at the speed that they do is pretty amazing. So, um, it is an Olympic year this year, the first time that the players will be going to the Olympics since 2014, and it's 12 years away from probably the the epitome of sports, which is the Olympics. It's the best platform. So it's an exciting year for hockey, and it's the season started out really good. There's some teams that are overproducing, some teams that are underproducing, but that you usually get that every year anyway.
Do you think that you could see more fighting or bring that kind of back into the game? And do you think that that's a missing piece that you believe should come back?
I don't see it coming back in the near future, not unless the generation starts raising their kids with more of a strong arm, raising their kids with a without that soft, not let's not let our feelings get hurt type of mentality. Unless it changes, in the next generation. I think we're out of the generations um, where toughness is needed, toughness is accepted. Toughness is just part of life, and you keep going, you complain about it, you let it drive you. And it's I think it's different culture. People don't like the fighting, people don't like the ferocity so much anymore. And even though you get to see it a little bit with hockey, it'll never come back to where it was back in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a shame because it's definitely a different game. It's more skill, more high pace, but you see just in the playoffs how some of these guys that were like bred a different breed a little bit are kind of destroying the smaller, more skilled players, as you could see. So, it could change just based on the success teams are having, but I agree with you. It's going to be a little harder. And when you were playing, obviously, was there like just teams that you would hate to play or kind of after you played them needed more of like just something
Ice
to
bags,
help you get up? Hmm.
like ice bags. Yeah. Well, I played in the Norris division, which at the time we called it the Chuck Norris division. It was Chicago, Toronto, Detroit, St. Louis, and Minnesota. And it was just they were brawls. I mean, every game was a brawl. There was more fights in those games than there were in all the rest of the games combined. So you had to be tough. You had to be a man to play in those in that the era, and especially in that division. Going up against Bob Probert and Joey Kosher in Detroit, going up against Basil McRae and Shane Churla. in Minnesota, going up against Tony Twist and Kelly Chase and Darren Kimball in St. Louis. It was just a never-ending battle of fights. And we, in Chicago, we had our own bruisers with Stu Grimson, Mike Pluso. Yeah, we had, in Chicago we had Wayne Van Dorp, we had Stu Grimson, we had Mike Pluso, we had uh, Dave Manson, Cam Russell, Bobby McGill. We had a whole slew of tough guys that played for us. So it was definitely a division that if you didn't have thick skin, you weren't going to make it.
Yeah, it's is there like with those guys like the weirdest pregame ritual you've ever seen out of them, or you're just like, what is going on for them to get going in the game?
Yeah, we wouldn't say I mean, everybody was different. Usually guys would have a certain amount of cups of coffee. Steve Larmer would put a certain amount of pieces of gum in his mouth. Um, Guys would tape their sticks and put them in a certain place, not don't touch it, any of our stuff. Some people drove to the game the same way. Everybody had their own routine, right? So, whether you call them traditions or routines or, you know, um, whatever you want to call them, anything to get your mind in the right place. That was the most important part, is just get your mind properly prepared and ready. And, you know, so they were a lot of fun sometimes to have, and sometimes you just didn't need them because things weren't going right. No matter what you did, you just had to go out and battle.
Was there a specific stadium or city that you love to play in on the road?
I love to play on the road all over the place because I love to beat other teams in front of their own fans, which is why I like to play in Toronto, because Toronto and Montreal, those two buildings, number one, they're original six buildings, so there's a lot of history in those buildings. But the people really knew the game. They really understood what was going on. They were passionate about their team, their night, and wrecked their day when their teams lost. And they appreciate good hockey. So I always loved going up into those stadiums and being able to play. In the Forum and in the Toronto Maple Leaf Gardens was pretty special for me.
And in this modern day, do you see a couple players or teams that you think play the right way in terms of just the balance of skill, physicality?
Well, I mean, obviously, what the Florida Panthers just did over the last 3 years, they built a culture behind Matthew Tkachuk. And Matthew Tkachuk, his dad played in the '90s and played with me, and had that mentality. And he brought his both kids up to play the same way, to have the same old school mentality. And Matthew Tkachuk is one of those guys that does not accept mediocrity, does not accept a non-working, non-tough, non-in-your-face physical game. And I think he brought everybody into the same mentality. He created a culture in Florida after getting traded from Calgary. Matthew Tkachuk drew the players, dragged them into playing a level of game and a style of game that made their team very hard to play against. That's the reason they went to the Stanley Cup Finals 3 years in a row and won the finals the last 2 years, is because of that in your face, hard to play against mentality. Play for each other, play with each other, and play as four line units. I mean, there's never a break. So, obviously Florida built that culture there. That's why they're champions. Tampa did the same thing before. I think Colorado has that same mentality because of the way McKinnon plays, the way McCarr plays. Those guys play extremely hard. They're hard players to play against. So, um, you it's there's few and far between in terms of teams that can play the game the right way, that are very tough to play against because you just don't get a break.
Yeah, and obviously I'm born and raised in Chicago. I've watched these Blackhawks teams like over and over. I wanted to get your opinion on how do you think that culture can be brought to Chicago? Is there specific players that need to be put in place? Is it like just a coach that is harder on them? Like, how do you think you could bring that culture to the Blackhawks?
It's a pack mentality. I mean, everybody has to be in on the idea. If you let three or four guys stray away from the mentality, and you don't you don't attack that culture, or you don't attack that clan, that group, then you're never going to get a pack mentality. So it has to start from your coach. has to go to your captains and your leaders, and it has to be expressed onto your young players, and everybody has to buy in. And when someone doesn't do their job or somebody doesn't do play the style of the game that is outlined for your team, or you don't perform within the culture of your team, they are called out, and they are called out by their teammates. And there's no exceptions. Um, I look at the Blackhawks this year, and it's a totally different team this year from last year. The way they play, the way their attitude on the ice, their compete level, the way they play for each other, their physicality, the way they fight and bite back. Um, there's no quit in their game, and they're finding ways of staying in games that they probably should be out, and they have a winning record right now because they um, they're playing for each other, not for themselves.
Yeah, and a guy like Spencer Knight has, I think, 12 goals above expected saves, and he's leading the league by at least four over Shesterkin. There's just a new, different type of culture that Blashill and Co. has kind of brought there. So I wanted to like get your opinion as well as like, do you think that Connor Bedard has been playing with more of an edge, and have you seen that improvement from year over year? And do you think that he's kind of like what Blackhawks thought they were drafting when they drafted him?
You got to remember he's only 20 years old, right? So he's still got a lot of growing to do. He's still a small guy. He has gotten stronger in his lower body. I think he's skating harder, skating faster. I think he's stronger in his feet. He does have to work on his shot. He's got one of the best shots in the game, without question. He's got a little bit more help this year, which I think he's loving with having Nazar around there, another young kid they can grow together. That's always a lot of fun. Burakovsky is a very good hockey player. Um, having great leadership with Foligno, having great leadership with Murphy. Um, he's going to continue to get better. Where I see the difference is he's more engaged. He's biting back. He's pushing back. He's slashing and rubbing people, punching people in the face. He's not getting intimidated. He's in the mix a little bit more, and that's going to pay off dividends. I think Connor Bedard is definitely taking a big step forward in his maturity on being the face of the team and being involved with and fight for the team, because now the team is fighting for him with him, and it's readily apparent. So he's only going to get better. I think he's doing a great job this year.
And almost like 2 weeks ago, you were just named a Blackhawks ambassador with Pat Foley. So can you tell me a little bit about, how you felt when you got the news that that happened and how that event went?
Yeah, it was great. I've always wanted to be part of the Blackhawks. Leaving in '96 was one of the worst things that happened in my career. And every time walking back into that building, I always felt like something was missing, almost like I wasn't appreciated anymore. And my relationship with the Hawks is, especially since the Hall of Fame, has rekindled. My relationship with Danny Wirtz is great. Our respect is and admiration for each other is very, very high, and we both love the team. We love this. We love the Blackhawks. We love the history of the Blackhawks. To be an ambassador in the 100th year is pretty special to me, and I get to walk into that building with my head held high, knowing that I had a big, big piece of building that organization, especially building that arena. And I get to say thank you to a lot of the fans that watch me play there, and not only them saying hi and appreciating me, but me also saying hi and appreciating them back. It's a great situation for me.
Yeah, I was very happy when I saw that and the red carpet, that was so cool. So I wanted to get your just opinions on like what your favorite part of your career has been and just like the entire process and just like for you, what has been the best part?
I don't know. I think that's a hard question. I had 21 years that were highs and lows, ups and downs. Great things that happened, bad things that happened. The Chicago days were good, great. Philly days were good. My San Jose days were fantastic. He just, making the Hall of Fame, I think, was life changing to me. It put me in a different perspective in my brain, made me a different person, kind of put a cherry on top of my career. So I would say probably the best part of my career has been the last year and a half that I haven't even played.
And the body. probably feels a little better after not having to play in those games.
Mm.
But I wanted to ask you about your passions outside of the rink. Is there anything that got your mind off of hockey and just more about you?
Uh, I'm a big family man. I love being with my wife. I love being with my kids. I love to travel. My wife and I travel all over the world. We try to get out of the country at least 4 times a year. We try to see different parts of the states when we can. Um, drink as much wine as we can. We love wine. I'm a big golfer, so I try to play the best golf courses I can. I just like to be out there meeting people. Very, very passionate guy about doing things to charity, raising money for charity. Giving back is very important to me. So um, that's kind of what keeps me busy.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask about when you kind of knew you could make it to the NHL and just like the process of, wow, I can do this, and when that kind of was in your journey.
Probably not till my second year pro when I finally made the team for a full year instead of getting sent down for 24 or 26 games. That first year when they put Michel Goulet and Steve Larmer on my wings and traded away Dennis Savard, that's when I knew that there was something special and I was going to stick around and I made it.
And just like the moment that kind of you realized that you were going to make it to the Hall of Fame, did you have a moment of everything kind of running like rewound back and you had to think about every part of your journey of hockey after you made it to the Hall of Fame?
Well, I got the call for the Hall of Fame on June 25th, and I think from June 25th until November 11th when I went in was that was the time when I really had to unravel my entire career. What was I going to be able to say? How much time do I have to say it? How much crap I'm going to get from the alumni, from the Hall of Fame committee that I've talked too long. Because I was able to go over my entire career in its entirety and the good, the bad, the ugly, and the great, and come to grips with all of it. And when you come to grips with everything that you've been through and everything that you've done, you have a much different and much greater appreciation for things.
Yeah, and just like what was your most underrated skill in your arsenal that you had that you think goes overlooked in your opinion, playing wise?
Um, I think I was one of those players that were able to do everything, the multi-talented. I killed penalties. I had a shit ton of shorthanded goals. I fought. I hit hard. I had 703 assists, 500 goals. There really wasn't much that people could say was a weakness for me. No, nothing.
Heck yeah, I like that. And is there
The
anybody in
the
the
only thing,
NHL?
the only thing I probably would have done is I probably would have worked out harder off ice. I probably would have taken my off ice conditioning and preparing a little bit more seriously because it really wasn't as popular to do that back then, and I was a little bit more egocentric back then. If I would have worked out harder and prepared my body harder, I probably would have scored 200 more goals, like 400 more points.
And do you think there's anybody in the NHL that
No,
plays like you? No?
no.
Yeah.
There are
I
guys that have some of the same things that I have. Some guys have some of the same things that I had. Some guys score goals like I did. Some guys make passes like I did. Some guys hit like I did. Some guys fought like I did. None of them put it all together, all in one package.
and when you were watching the 2013
On a night
2010,
on a night on a night on a nightly basis too.
yeah, like just doing it on all aspects of the game as well as at a high level, it doesn't come to like doesn't match. But can I get your like Blackhawks Mount Rushmore? You're on it, but who are your other three in your opinion?
Chris Chelios. I mean, Dennis Savard, Eddie Belfour. They're my Mount Rushmore.
And
Doug
when you
Wilson.
were, and what was the last one? Sorry.
Dougie Wilson.
Well, when you were watching the the Stanley Cup runs for the Blackhawks. Was how did that feel when you were watching those? And did you like contact like who was the first person you contacted when you saw the Blackhawks won?
Probably Chelly. Probably Chelly. Chelly and I always talk. Chelly and I have always been close. Um, I reached out to Kane, made sure to him. But yeah, it's always proud. I fought to raise that cup over that Indian head. Never got to do it. There's a lot of jealousy and a lot of and envious. And I'm envious for that they had the ability to do it 3 times in 6 years. It's great for city Chicago. I mean, I don't think there was many celebrations better than the parade in Chicago in 2010, which was you know it was a long time coming. The city deserved it. It was a happy time for the Hawks.
Yeah, I was there. It was absolutely insane. I mean, that was the greatest parade. And then the Cubs one was obviously pretty good too. But um, outside of like things in Chicago, what are some of your favorite things to do when you go back to Chicago out of San Diego?
Playing a lot of golf, eating in the restaurants, going out in the boat, out in the lake. There's nothing better. Nothing better. Um, it's a great city. Has some of the best restaurants in the world. So I love just being out, walking Michigan Avenue, sitting in Starbucks Reserve and watching the people. It's pretty cool.
And my last question, because you've been so generous with your time, and I really appreciate talking to you. You are a huge inspiration to everybody in Chicago, so thank you. But when do you think the Blackhawks will be in playoff contention? Do you think it will be in the next couple, like this year
Well,
or
if
next year?
they, well, if they keep playing the way they're playing and they keep progressing as a team together, they'll make a few moves here and there. Obviously they'll draft well again this year. I can see them being back in the playoffs, maybe next year, uh, or at least fighting for a playoff spot next year. I wouldn't count it out this year. I still think they have some youth that need to grow, but
Mhm.
the way they're playing together, I think it's going to be a lot shorter span than people would have thought last year.
Well, thank you very much, Jeremy Roenick. You are just an idol to me and so many others. So congratulations on the ambassador program, and thank you for joining me.
You got it. Thanks, Ed.